particularly when we walk around with great big long to-do lists, which is always a little bit daunting, and you start ticking off some of the things and then not quite sure what to do next because the list gets longer and longer.
And, Susie, most of us in the world aren't instructed, we're not educated in how the mind actually works.
Mm.
And so we're trying to use the one major asset that we all have that can get us all the results we're looking for, and we're not actually instructed in how to use it.
Right. Now, we've been told, Manj, I would really, really want to go and discuss next with you about the mind. We've been told that we use about 10% of our mind, so that all this other 90% is lolling around, not doing anything. What are your views on this 10% and the 90% that's not doing anything?
I think 10% is vastly overestimated. I'd probably say it's more like 2%, but that's just a personal view. If you take the neuroscience research into this from about, I guess, 6, 7, 8 years ago, so it's nothing new, but I do know that Horizon on the BBC, I think it was Horizon, ran a program last year, and I did get it out to as many of my clients as possible whilst it was still on their iPlayer. I think it was only on for about 6 weeks, that started talking about this research. And what it is, I think it was about 3 or 4 separate institutions. There were 2 universities in America, 1 foundation for neuroimagery research in America, independently of each other, came to the same conclusion, which was this. For 95% of our waking hours, we are not in control of our conscious thinking. In other words, we are not in cognitive control of our minds. So get this. For 95% of the time you're awake, you're actually driven, your behaviors, emotions, thoughts, your actions ultimately are driven by mindsets or solidified thought programs, values, beliefs, etc., which you have no control over. Now, some of them will be good, and some of them may not be fit for purpose, depending on what you would like to achieve in your life. And I think that is a startling revelation when you actually get your mind around that.
It's enormous.
And it is.
It's very scary. We think we're in control, don't we?
Yeah, and what you have is you've got unconscious thought processes masquerading as cognitive thought.
Right.
That's what it is. And you think you're actually thinking.
Can you give us an example of that? Can you give us an example of that, something that's masquerading?
So some of the research was this. They took married couples and separated the husband and wives, and they got them to write down what their ideal partners were. And we're talking the massive percentage. I think it was way over 75%. Their partners were nothing like their perfect partners.
Oh, my goodness.
Then you would have, I'll give you an example. For example, a lot of the sabotaging mechanisms work this way. You've got the classic one where, I don't know, let's say as a young child, someone inadvertently tells that young child that they'll never grow up to be anything, in an unfortunate comment, because it's driven by inappropriate feelings of anger or something. Now that child, whatever they do as they grow up, if that's gone into that deeper part of the mind, they will operate from that for the rest of their life. And it's a bit like trying to swim against the tide. Eventually, you'll just get tired and drown.
Right.
So
it's literally like a computer program that you can't, or a computer virus that you can't delete.
Yes and no.
Okay.
It's more like a computer program that you can reprogram.
Right.
And that's the difference. Some viruses you can't always. No, maybe you can. Yeah, maybe it's like a virus. As long as you know you have someone who can help you to get rid of the virus. Yes, it can be. This is the thing with. If you look at some of the men and women who have shaped mankind, our history on this planet, they were people, in terms of super achievers, they were the ones who never had one opposing thought to what they were doing. They were just so single-minded, from inventors to humanitarians to great business people. They just had one thing locked on. So they never had this opposing thought. An opposing thought would be like having the first strains of a virus in your program. It might start off small, sabotaging here and there. Eventually it just spreads, and then it's all over. And so that's why people then hop to the next thing, because they really don't have, in my experience, a well-formed understanding of how their minds work.
Okay.
So it is a whole fascinating area. Once you get a little bit of that understanding, it's possible to actually then start really applying your mind. It's like saying, hold on a second, if you're using only 5%, imagine if you doubled that or trebled it. You don't even have to use all of it. Imagine what would happen. You know, the awarenesses you'd have, the clarity you'd have, the ability to quieten the parts that are inappropriate and not resourceful, and really turn up the volume on the areas that you can use as a real resource. And then you find you make a quantum leap in your circumstances.